Hi everybody, welcome. This is our NAMI Southwest Iowa C.A.R.E.S series tonight. We do this once a month. C.A.R.E.S is an acronym for Community Advocacy Resources Education and Support. My name is Anna Kilpack, by the way, and I'm the Executive Director for NAMI Southwest Iowa. So the idea behind C.A.R.E.S is really to have a discussion, an informal discussion about something mental health or disability related. So we try to do it once a month, and we move all over the region, the 9-county region that we serve, doing this. And so tonight, we've got a guest speaker that's going to talk to us about why we cling to things, why do we hang on to things, and kind of what's behind hoarding. There's of course so much that goes into that. We can't possibly cover everything in one short night, but she's going to give us kind of an intro. But before I introduce her, I just want to share with you NAMI Southwest Iowa. If you're not familiar with us, we provide support groups, educational classes, presentations, and just little meetings like this. Anything we can do to help support individuals that are living with mental health issues, or family members that are living with an individual that has mental health issues, and just really to break down stigma. And that's what this is all about, is opening up these conversations, normalizing the conversation, and trying to reduce stigma so that more people feel comfortable getting help for their issues, or whatever they're struggling with. So again, NAMI Southwest Iowa, this is a C.A.R.E.S series. And without further ado, I will introduce Carol Brehmer to talk about hoarding tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, don't clap yet. I haven't done anything. My name is Carol Brehmer. I work for Southwest Iowa Families. I am a positive family home visitor in our program for the 0 to 5 services. And I began at Southwest Iowa Families 15 years ago as Dinosaur School Coordinator. Now raise your hand if you know anything about Dinosaur School. Pretty common, I see no hands.
Just what you've told me.
Unless you're a parent of a preschooler who has been through the program, you probably haven't heard about it. Just briefly, it's a social emotional programming for preschool age children, or a little older when we have group sessions in the summer at our office, and it's to help them be a better friend, hopefully avoid bullying or being bullied, to be able to express their feelings, to problem solve, to be a better student. So that's basically what Dinosaur School is. And the positive family services are to help parents be their child's first teacher. We hope to get a parent engaged at the point where the mom is pregnant, and then we stay with that family until that child is ready for kindergarten, which could be 6 years old. 6th birthday or first day of kindergarten, whichever comes first. So those are the 2 jobs I have at Southwest Iowa Families. Now the topic tonight for me is personal. Okay, so I have a confession. I have a little bit of a hoarding problem, and mine is animal hoarding. And I know I should have had those first 2 fixed. And now I'm in this world of hurt with all these dust bunnies in my house. Oh, come on, you're not laughing. Well, you might wonder how can I make fun of such a serious disorder? Because I grew up in the household of a hoarder. My mother was undiagnosed mental illness hoarder, very extreme. She almost died in her hoard. So it took me to my young adulthood to understand that was not normal. I grew up with the secret shame of living in a home where I couldn't open the door more than this far to greet my friends and say, I'll be right out, and close the door again. Just if you're familiar with adult children of alcoholics, I was the child of a hoarder. She wouldn't admit it. Never did until close to her death. She finally said, she didn't use the word hoarding, but she said, I kind of kept everything. Hers was so extreme, she kept trash. Her house was so horrible, it was a health hazard. And she almost died there. So I have a very personal connection. And my sister, 7 years older than me, I better put this down because I'm fidgeting.
They're fine. Sometimes we need that.
Yeah, a little squishy thing or something. My sister really, really struggled. My sister was diagnosed bipolar and understood she had a hoarding disorder. So my sister and I consulted lots and lots over the years. My sister is the one who introduced me to the fact that there's frequently a scale of the syndrome from 0 to 10. 0 might be that person who's just got a little bit of pile of papers on their desk, not bad, livable. The 10 is the person that you have what we call goat trails through the house. So the piles and piles of refuse on each side. The 10 is the person who cannot sleep in their bed because their bed is covered. They sleep in a recliner or somewhere else. So the 10 is very extreme. My sister felt like maybe she herself was a 5. She had a caseworker who would come into her apartment and try to help her organize. My sister is what I call a tidy hoarder. You can find what you needed, but she had a lot of it. My sister was very, very, very talented in all of the fiber arts. So she had yarn and thread and tiny little jewelry pieces. I'm wearing some of the jewelry she made. So she had totes all lined up, labeled, but they went floor to ceiling. So, I mean, you could move in her apartment, but she had a lot of stuff. If I'm honest, if I look around at my house, maybe I'm a 3, 4. I don't know. I don't want to look that closely, to be honest. But I have to be kind to myself because I've been in my house 28 years. I have my lifetime belongings, some of my ex-husbands, my son, my daughter who moved out, and they do that. They leave what they don't want. And then I got remarried, so I have my current husband's stuff. And then my mother died, so I've got her stuff. And then my sister died, and I have her stuff. And then we had friends in Clarinda for 3 years that were from Spain, and they moved home, and I've got their stuff. So, yes, I have things to deal with. I have stuff. So that's my personal story. And so a lot of where I come from on this information has been things that I've learned, I've researched, or lived through my life. Hoarding did not used to be a category of its own in a DSM until the DSM-5. The most current one, that's Diagnostic Statistical Manual, number 5, now includes hoarding disorder. I'm going to read you a couple of things from this, not the whole thing. So the diagnosis criteria is persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions regardless of their actual value. This difficulty is due to perceived need to save the items and distress associated with discarding them. The difficulty discarding possessions results in the accumulation of possessions that congest and clutter active living areas and substantially compromises their intended use. If living areas are uncluttered, it is only because of the interventions of third parties, family members, cleaners, authorities. The hoarding causes clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning, including maintaining a safe environment for self or others. The hoarding is not attributable to another medical condition, brain injuries, cerebral vascular disease, Prader-Willi syndrome. The hoarding is not better explained by the symptoms of another mental disorder, obsessive compulsive. It used to be under that category of obsessive compulsive disorder. Decreased energy in major depressive disorder, delusions in schizophrenia or other psychotic disorder, cognitive deficits in the major neurocognitive disorder, restricted interests in the autism spectrum disorder. So those are ruled out in order to give it the designation hoarding disorder. My mother, I believe, also had obsessive compulsive shopping, and that is frequently comorbidity with hoarding, is that you're shopping so much and then you take it in your home and then you don't want to get rid of it. So the difficulty in discarding possessions noted refers to any form of discarding, including throwing away, selling, giving away, or recycling. Those are very difficult for people with hoarding disorder. Most commonly saved items are newspapers, magazines, old clothing, bags, books, mail, and paperwork. That was my mother. All of that. Individuals accumulate large numbers of items that fill up and clutter active living spaces so that their intended use is no longer possible. She stopped cooking in her kitchen. Her appliances stopped working, so she ate out every meal. She stopped sleeping in her bed. She slept on the couch in the family room, surrounded by clutter. And when she was finally removed from her home, it wasn't that she fell and couldn't get up. We realized later she confessed that she gave up. She was sitting on her couch, surrounded. She was sick. She needed a medical intervention. She needed emergency medical help. But she didn't want to let anyone in the house. She wasn't strong enough to get up, go to the car, and drive to the hospital. So she did confess to me she wanted to die there. She just wanted to give up. A friend discovered by calling her when she missed an important meeting, a friend called her, and my mother was close enough to the phone to answer. She could have called for help. It wasn't like people said, well, didn't she have one of those emergency alerts? It didn't matter. She could have reached the phone. She just didn't want to let anyone in the house. I hadn't been in her house for years. She always met me by stepping outside onto the front stoop and waiting for me no matter what the weather. And there was an episode of her waiting out there in 10-degree weather until I arrived to pick her up to go out to eat. She didn't want me to see through the door. And at some point, her front door no longer opened. She had to go around to the only door she could get into the home. So that is such a fire hazard, not only for her, but for firefighters. If there'd been a fire, it would have been lethal for anyone trying to go in that home and find her. So she was ill, she needed emergency medical assistance, and her friend called the ambulance. The ambulance, they had to find the door that was accessible, push their way in, take her out. Then I got a call from the county public health nurse who said, my mother's been taken out, she will not go back to that home, it's being condemned. That's how bad it was. So this is, like I say, on a scale of 0 to 10, my mother was a 10. And I grew up in that. I would say in the years I was there, it got steadily worse and worse. I probably, as a little girl, maybe the level was only 4. And as I got into junior high, it became 5 and 6. And then getting close to high school and college, it was getting to be a 7. I experienced depression through high school. And I experienced guilt that I couldn't help her and keep up with it. I remember in 9th grade when we had open campus for lunch and we had moved and lived only 3 blocks from the school. I decided, okay, I'm going to go home every day for lunch and I'm going to clean and do the dishes while I'm there. And it wasn't my job. And the guilt I felt because I couldn't keep up with it, and it just began piling up over and over. So there were lots of ramifications for me as a child of a hoarder. By all standards, I should have been removed by DHS. I should have been removed to a healthier environment. My grandparents tried to step in. I remember a huge fight they had. I'm sure it was over the living conditions, and it didn't sway her. She didn't get help. She had to want to get help. And the ironic thing is, she was a school psychologist. You'd think the person who should know better. So that's what my sister and I struggled with for so many years, is the belief that our mother chose her belongings over us. And that's very common with children of hoarders, especially if they are removed. And if they're removed and the courts say, in order to get your children back, you have to clean up your house, and they don't or can't, the children are left with that belief, you want your stuff more than you want me. So it's incredibly detrimental to the family members. There are marriages that break up because one spouse can't put up with it. And that is one of the keys I've seen in my reading. It's okay to move out for your own health and your own mental health and your safety. If you cannot get that person to accept that they need help, you might have to move out. So that's what we get from the DSM. I did a webinar from Mindspring Mental Health Alliance, which was NAMI of Greater Des Moines.
Don't say that.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
Edit. It's its own organization.
Yes.
It's in Des Moines.
When I took the webinar, it was
Okay.
another one. So I'm going to do a few notes that I got from that webinar. They refer to the diagnostic definition, and then they compare it to how is hoarding disorder different from being thrifty, okay? Person who saves things. Why don't we open it up? Can we open up for people to make comments?
I would love that.
Okay, so what do you think? Go ahead and share. What is the difference between hoarding disorder and being a thrifty person?
The emotional distress that it causes you to discard of it.
Yep, there's one.
The negative impact it has on your life.
Yes, yes. Especially consider someone who's hoarding rubbish. There is no value. So that's not thrifty. Okay, so that piles up and it weighs on you. Anything else you can think of?
It becomes a safety hazard.
Yeah.
Which maybe
Yeah,
kinda
a
goes
person
along
who
with
is thrifty still lives their life in their belongings in a safe way. So that would be my first mother-in-law, who would wipe clean the aluminum foil and put it in a certain drawer that had the clean Ziploc baggies, and but she would reuse. She would reuse. It didn't take over her life. So that's thrifty, the difference. There's a specific purpose for a person who's thrifty, and they will use it. A hoarder doesn't necessarily use it. It's just there. The thrifty person is proud of their accomplishments. That, you know, I saved this amount of money by making my own, oh, here's mine. You know those cereal bag liners that are kind of like wax paper? So I don't buy a tube of wax paper. I save cereal bag liners, and they can open up, and that's when I take out my hot cookies and I put them onto this cereal bag liner. And I'm proud about that, and I'm thrifty. It doesn't take over my life. Okay, yes, I have a kitchen drawer that's kind of full of these things, but I can throw them away when I get too many. I can. I'm organized. A thrifty person is organized. And the thrifty person discards the unwanted things. Like you said, they don't cling to it. How about the difference between hoarding disorder and collecting? What do you think?
Collecting usually has a theme to it, whereas hoarding is typically everything.
Yes. So, person who collects the Hummel ornaments, you remember those? Or baseball cards, or, you know, purpose.
So I have a question on that then. Okay,
right.
so I have and I won't name names, but someone in the family that my husband and I kind of joke that he has a hoarding issue, you know, and honestly, I think it's true, but it is hard to make that distinction between, is it a hoarding issue or is he collecting things? And the things that he collects are machinery, cars, scrap metal, and all of this is outside around the machine shed and around the barn and around the everywhere. You know, but it's not, but he won't take the scrap metal in.
Oh.
He's got maybe 16 vehicles, they all work.
Yeah.
But he can't drive 16 vehicles, you know, and they're not collector's cars, you know.
Okay.
So is it a collection or is
yes and no. It depends. Is it causing him, first start with him, any distress about the amount of things, like having too many project cars, you can't get to them, you have too many?
Oh, yeah, it's too many.
Too many?
It's, yeah.
I believe it sounds like it might be distressful for you as a family member.
He had to build another machine shed in order to have space to work on his farm equipment, because he couldn't get it into the giant machine shed he had because he had too much stuff.
The collection. Does he show it to anyone? Come on over, I want to show you my, okay, so then it's not a collection to display or show pride in.
And I do feel like, because there's some emotional Well, his nephew sold a pickup on auction, and it caused him so much distress because he didn't buy it, that he called the auction company, found out who bought it, and went and bought it
from
for
them?
more money from them.
Okay, all right, I would say that's a little sign.
Yeah.
When my mother, when I was early married, first like 5 years I was married, I had my first garage sale. And afterward, I told my mother, well, last weekend I was busy with a garage sale. You'd have thought I had killed my firstborn. She flipped out. What did you sell? Well, why did you sell it? Can't you use that? She could not comprehend that these are discards. We do not need them. Let someone else enjoy them. She could not wrap her head around that. And blamed me. Those might have been family heirlooms you're giving away. And it caused it so that I stopped telling her if I got rid of things because it distressed her. I'm going to pass around, I'll keep talking, but I'm going to pass around something that has been copied from a website. This says traumatext.com services, hoarding. Now, a lot of the materials I start with here came from 2013. So when I pass out this handout that has some resources on the back, I had to white out the things that are no longer websites. I went to check them a week or so ago. This handout shows you hoarding levels. Okay. Oh, hang on, wait on that one. I wanted to look at this one and we'll get to that one. So you look at hoarding level 1 and there's a photographic description, example. And then hoarding level 2, you have to turn the page to find 2, and it has a before and after. So one doesn't look that bad, but it just, as you pass it around, you'll have to flip through the pages and look at the different levels. They go 1 to 5. Where I've said this scale of 0 to 10, my mother would have been a 5 on this scale. So yes, definitely difference between hoarding and collection, between hoarding and thrifty. 3 aspects of clinical hoarding: collecting and failing to discard, so excessively acquiring, living spaces too cluttered to use, significant distress or impairment. Now, the reasons people collect, we'll call them the normal category. It has sentimental value. You've collected your grandmother's china, and maybe there's a couple of pieces broken, and you go into the antique shops and you look to replace those pieces. So sentimental value. Usefulness. People don't tend to collect non-useful things. And attractiveness is another reason to collect. Hoarders, they don't hoard because it's useful or necessarily attractive, or they think it has sentimental value only because it came into their possession. And now so this is a little bit of what I'm struggling with right now. I have my mother's stuff and my sister's stuff. They've died. It's emotional. I did have an auction for a big portion of my sister's stuff, but then there's things I need to go through, boxes of papers, and I've got my own, Kathy. So here's a little background. 4 to 14% of the population experience hoarding. That's kind of a range, 4 to 14%, but still, could be quite a lot. There's a strong genetic link and a question about whether there's a chromosome number 14. It could be in this mix. It may initiate in early teens. Well, we think teens, they're just slobs. They just threw all their clothes in a pile. You have to watch. When did it go from just being lazy to, is it hoarding? It's most common with middle-aged adults. I like to consider myself a middle-aged adult until somebody asks me if I plan to live to 120. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm not middle-aged anymore. A personality type of being indecisive seems common among hoarders, and it may develop after a stressful event. My mother's may have gotten worse exponentially after my parents divorced. They divorced when I was 5. And my earliest memories are about the time my dad left, and then progressively getting worse in the home. Or maybe my dad had something to do with keeping her under control, and that was the stress of their marriage, and he finally had it and had to get out. I don't know that. They're gone. I don't know that. Co-occurring disorders typically can be depression, anxiety, other OC disorders, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Now, why it's difficult to throw it out? You want to give some comments about why it's difficult for somebody to throw their things? Yes.
I don't know how to word it, but like say you got it from somebody, or like it's or something you got from a parent, or like somebody that has passed on or something.
So you believe there's sentimental value to this
Yeah.
this item?
So you don't like want to get rid
Big
of
one.
stuff that.
Yep, big one. Anything else?
There may be a use for it later.
Yes.
I can use that for something.
Yeah.
I don't know what yet.
It's only
But
broken a
something.
little bit. I could
Right.
probably fix that
Right.
someday.
I can weld that.
Yes, yes, yes. I have a sewing pile in what I call my dressing room of things. I'm gonna fix that. Now it doesn't fit me, but I'll fix that. It'll be useful. Okay, yeah, there's a little secret. There's my,
I'm gonna go home and clean out closet.
yes, my clothes. Can you think of anything else? Reasons why it's hard to let things go?
I think partially they want to pass it on, some of the stuff.
Yes.
To somebody not even just, I'm
Yes.
just gonna use it, but
You-
my kids are gonna want it.
Exactly. Huge for me. I had plans. I mean, I'm in a 3-story Victorian house, and my children are getting close to, graduating from college, and I'm going to set them up on their first apartment, and we're going to give them a... My daughter left for Japan for 5 years. I couldn't furnish an apartment for her, so I'm left with the set of dishes and the things I plan to give her. And then my son comes along, and he doesn't give a rip about family heirlooms. Actually, this is true. We are discovering the younger generation is not as interested in antiques or even family heirlooms. They want sturdy dishes that can go in the microwave, freezer, or oven. They don't want sterling. They don't want crystal. They don't want tablecloths. I've got all of that. But by golly, I've used them over the years. And I'm going to keep using them. They can deal with it when I'm dead. You don't want it, you'll deal with it later. Yeah. Positive feelings from acquiring. My sister used to tell me that my mother reminded her of the hunter-gatherer. She would tell us about the sales she went to and the wonderful bargains she got. She could not pass up a buy one. I see a meaningful look going on there. She could not pass up a buy one, get one free. That was an addictive drug to her, the BOGO. We cleaned out a couple of her cars through the years because she kept getting tickets for obstructed vision. And there were times when I felt like an archaeologist going through she'd have that passenger seat next to her up to the ceiling. Back seat full, trunk full, dashboard full. Started to get cluttered around her feet where her gas pedal and brake were. So it was dangerous. She had accidents. They still kept giving her license back. Whole different story. Anyway, so we'd clean out her cars, and there's these layers where you could see by the mail, the postmark on the mail down through the layers. It went back like 5 years before we got to the seat. And one time I cleaned out a car, and I kept finding plastic bags. I cannot stand plastic bags to this day. So I kept finding all these plastic bags with turkey basters, 2 of them in each bag. Finally found a receipt, and it was the first one was purchased, the second one was free. I think I probably pulled out a dozen turkey basters. My mother didn't cook. She didn't have a stove that worked. She got pop tab soup cans so she could just eat out of the can. Couldn't find the can opener. What was she doing with all these turkey basters? Because they were buy one, get one free. And at the end of her life, she started telling me, well, no, I started responding. Before this, I wouldn't say anything because it was too traumatic for me. Buy one, get one free. She'd say, you can't pass that up. And I finally had the strength to say, well, yeah, I can if I don't need it. Because then she'd try and give me all this stuff. We'd go out to eat somewhere, we'd pull up cars next to each other, and she knew driving back home she might get stopped for that obstructed vision. Hey, do you need cans of soup? Do you need cake mix? And do you need this? And at a certain point, I felt abused. I was helping out her mental illness, helping her clean her car. Now her junk is my junk. And at a certain point, I had to get strong and say, no, I don't need that. Thank you anyway. No, I had to be strong because she would argue. Oh, everybody can use soup. No, because it had been in her car, probably through hot and cold, and the can looked like it was bulging. I'm like, no, I'm good, thanks. Had to be strong, because that was, when she died after her service, the number of people who came up to me and said, your mother was so generous. And I had to bite my tongue because I wanted to say that was her mental illness. She was trying to clean out her car, and she was giving it to you so she could go back and go shopping some more. But I couldn't. They wouldn't understand. I just thanked them and nodded. Yeah, she seemed very generous.
She probably, sorry.
No, go ahead,
some
yes,
joy
please.
Out of that, giving it away to people that would use it, right?
How what?
She got some joy out of giving it to people?
Yes, there was probably some, and that's a little bit positive feeling from acquiring. Now, they say negative feelings from letting go. So in her case, yes, because she got the accolades from people. Oh, Carla, you're so generous. Oh, you do. She'd give to the Head Start classrooms, and she'd give to teachers associations. She bought all these books, and then she'd have to find somebody to give them to. So for her, it was the warm fuzzies of getting praise for doing that. So yes, that's a little.
That probably reinforced some of
Yes.
those shopping behaviors.
Yes.
And that, because, well, somebody can use it.
Yeah.
Somebody can use
Yeah.
it.
Can't pass up a deal like that.
Somebody can use it.
Yeah, so my sister and I used to laugh about how my mother's phone calls reminded us of prehistoric times of sitting around the fire and talking about how you got that woolly mammoth at such a good deal. Sharing her successes, which in a very strange way. Strong beliefs about the value or usefulness of something when someone else would call it trash. They believe, no, this is useful. This one would be for a person hoarding pets. They feel responsible for these pets, and no one else can take care of them as good as they can. That's, thank God, the one thing she did not have. She did not have pets, and I will praise God for that, because that would have been just horrible. I'm a Humane Society volunteer, and I would have just been torn up by that. Or feeling responsible for the object, as you said, wanting to pass it on to someone else, the next generation, something. So the impact of hoarding, well, there's the disorganized piles, the crowded spaces, the excessive trash, losing important documents. My mother lost her checkbook over and over and just ordered new checks from the bank. I mean, when I went through her car, I'd find boxes and boxes of checks. She'd rip off the first 5 or 10 and then lose it and then go order some more. She lost her stock certificate, and that was a nightmare to get that replaced at the end of her life. Conflict in relationships. Obviously, she and I had a strained relationship after I left for college, and when I got married, and we did this massive family cleanup of the house because my in-laws were coming over, and I didn't want to be embarrassed, and it just killed me a whole summer trying to clean. And at the end of that, when I was about to get married, maybe a week before the wedding, I saw her starting to pile. And I flipped out, and I said, if you can't control and I didn't know it was hoarding at that time, if you can't control your house, I will never bring my husband into this house. And it turns out I never did, because she couldn't control it. So that's why it became where we'd drive over there, pick her up, take her out to eat, drop her back off at her house, and come home. That's the kind of relationship we ended up with. So there's risks. Can you think of the dangers? What are the dangers of having this level of hoarding? And we kind of mentioned a couple of them. What else do you think? Falls. Being buried in the collection.
Rodents.
Yes.
Tracks,
Yes.
pests.
She left one house to go to another house, and my mother and I were estranged at that time, and I got a call because she lived in Red Oak and I lived over here, and I got a call from someone asking me if I couldn't go take the neighbors asked me if I couldn't talk to her about the rat problem at that house that she'd abandoned. And I said, well, I can try, but she and I weren't speaking at that time. So the city had to condemn that one too. So yeah. Broken water pipes, and it's too cluttered to let somebody in to fix your plumbing. So now you've got, she had mold in the basement, it flooded. There was a winter break from college. I came home and she'd been living with the hot water heater not working until she got me home for Christmas break so I could help her clean up to get somebody down the stairs. So I remember that winter break, filling up the bathtub with cold water and then putting hot water from a tea kettle or pot. So we were living with no hot water. Frequently broken. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Yes.
Not being able to like have like if there was a fire or like ambulance needed to come.
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, there are articles and articles. I've got on this notebook if you want to flip through it. Articles, there's an Ann Landers article. Somebody wrote in and said, I think my neighbor's home is very dangerous. They talk about the rats. They talk, firefighters are aware of this situation and it's a danger to them. I've got an article here about this unsafe.
Well, because if there's a fire, they can't really get into.
They can't get in, they can't find the person, and maybe they can't get out. They get buried.
Yeah.
It's a risk to them.
Yeah.
Fire, yeah.
And it's a lot of fuel for the fire.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Goes up so much faster.
Fire go quicker.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
start a fire.
My mother's big one was newspapers. She always thought, I'm going to read that article that I wanted to read in there. I can't get rid of that newspaper. Piles and piles and piles of newspapers. Yeah, would have been a fire hazard. Yeah.
Is there such a thing as organized hoarding?
Yes, my
I feel
sister,
like I
my
kinda
sister
am.
was. Yeah, I think I am a little too. Well, again, you probably missed it. I talked about how there's a 0 to 10 scale of what it looks like. And so somebody who's like a 3, they've got a lot of stuff, but they've got it organized. Filing cabinets and cubbies and, you know, so yeah. But, and you know, so that like a 1 person is, well, I can throw that, no problem. Throw that, and if somebody else comes along, wait, I needed that. Yeah, that, yeah, I think you missed that part.
Well, and I think, you know, just like most other mental illnesses, there's
A spectrum?
a spectrum.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, and just like with any other mental illness, you can have a diagnosis, you can fit the criteria for a diagnosis for, say, bipolar. But if you can do things to manage your symptoms, you know, whether it's utilizing coping mechanisms or going to support groups or, you know, taking medication, whatever it is, you know, you still have bipolar, but it's not, it's
under
non-issue.
control, yeah.
It's not keeping you from living your life the way that you want to live your life.
Yeah.
And so I think hoarding is kind of the same thing. You could have some tendencies or some issues with hoarding, but if it's not affecting the way you live your life, if it's not
Or
a
your family
safety
members,
problem,
you know, might not bother you, but it might be bothering them, that might need, you know, family counseling or something.
right?
Yeah. Speaking of, what do you think? Can the family just come in and clean this for this person? No. No, they have to want it. Exactly, just like every other kind of mental health crisis or
They
issue.
can try to do an intervention, but they still have to get them to
Yep.
help and do like sometimes watch the show Hoarding.
Yeah.
And
See,
that-
I can't.
Yeah.
I get re-traumatized.
Well, yeah.
But there's some good stuff
yeah.
from what I hear.
Yeah, but anyways, and so like some of them do eventually come out of it and like clean their place and.
Do you know what it
So,
comes to
but-
sometimes?
But
It comes to
sometimes-
family intervention sometimes. It comes from legal authorities, like a landlord threatening to evict.
Yep.
And sometimes it comes to the hoarder coming to realize this is not how I want to live, this is not healthy, and they reach out for help. So if the family tries to do it, now, when I helped my mother, she had called for help. She called for me to help get this car empty so she could sell it because she moved on to a different car, or help get the house clean for my wedding or whatever. But it didn't stay. She just went back. But pretty much you have to find the underlying issues. They have to. The hoarder has to find out what's the underlying issues. And cleaning by others causes great distress and conflict. So it's not going to work. I mean, it might make it healthy for a short time, but. So you think it's treatable? have any ideas about how it can be treated?
It can only be treatable if they want it.
First and foremost, they have to seek the help. And then the notes I got from that webinar is, yes, but it's not the usual treatment. Now, it used to be under the category of obsessive compulsive disorder, so whatever medications or treatments could help, but they're now modifying the treatment. So first of all is challenge their thoughts to let them know this is not healthy or safe. Learn to resist, they have to learn to resist shopping. They have to maybe get some decision skills, okay, I'll keep this so I can give this away. Because the indecisive personality was one of those folks. One of them is increased socialization. Get out, get active, get into groups. And see, my mother collected things that she thought she would use entertaining. We got this fancy set of china, because I'm going to have these professional groups over. I'm a professional working woman. We're going to have these. We never did. So we had stacks and stacks of china and different things that she always thought she'd entertain with. But
Well, I think if you do like groups and stuff, that would help you like feel more like
support group maybe,
like
or
more out there and stuff, kind of, so that you don't have to do the hoarding. And
could be. These are the points that they had said for possible treatment plans. Medications, currently none are approved specific to hoarding disorder. They may help only to reduce symptoms. Meds can treat co-occurring conditions like the OCD or anxiety. Other treatment could be CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, skills training, group treatment, or communication do's and don'ts. First of all, imagine yourself in their shoes. And it was hard for me when it was my mother who is responsible for my care and upbringing. How could she do this to me? I'm an adult now. I have little elements of hoarding. Now I'm in her shoes. I'm like, yeah, I'm having trouble getting rid of my sister's stuff. Yeah. Match their language. If they say, oh, I'm kind of a pack rat, okay, go with it. Use their language. You can try and force the word hoarding down their throat, but it might not work. Encouraging language. Be positive. Oh my gosh, the car looks really good today. You got it, really tidy for coming over, whatever. And then highlight their strengths. Communication don'ts. Don't be judgmental. Don't devalue their possessions. Don't make suggestions about their possessions. Don't try persuading or arguing. Don't touch their belongings without their permission. If and when they're ready to talk or deal with their hoarding, show respect, have sympathy, encourage, team up with them, reflect, ask. And then support or coping tips for families of hoarders. Seek support for yourself, self-care for yourself. Express the impact. You can use your words. Okay, side story. When I was in 11th grade rhetoric class, I chose my topic for my term paper. The whole semester was to do a term paper. I chose my topic of depression. And I had my mother proofread my paper before I turned it in. My mother was a school psychologist. Okay? I let her read my paper. Do you think she asked me what was going on? It would have been the perfect opening. She could have said, what's going on? But I maybe I'm wrong, she understood. She opened it up. I would let her know. It's because of the living conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can express your feelings to somebody. I don't like living like this. Be aware this is a disorder. Took me a long time to get the words. Know that hoarding disorder is hard to change. You cannot force change. The family member does not need to live in this environment. If necessary, consider moving out. So that's, how we doing? Can you
We
Go.
have about 15 minutes.
Okay,
so.
let's go through this handout that I created a number of years ago. So now we'll pass this out. You get to keep it, so if you don't, if you can't read it as fast as I'm gonna say it, that's okay. It's for you to keep. Signs and indicators of possible hoarding, we've talked about a lot of them. So I'm just gonna kind of fly through this. The individual or family members smell unwashed, wear soiled, ripped, seasonally inappropriate clothes, eat out almost every meal, or at least daily, or uses convenience foods, pop-top cans, never or rarely have friends or family in their home. They open the door to a small degree to greet visitors. They wait for visitors or rides outside the home, sometimes in inclement weather. They repeatedly buy duplicates of household items. They prefer to buy books, magazines, DVDs rather than rent, check out, or borrow. They lose important documents. They're delinquent in financial obligations. They may suffer other OCD behavior, shopping, gathering, stealing, dumpster diving. Repeatedly shops for storage items. My mother had a garage full of totes and bins, and I'm going to get organized someday. Now we have a hoarding collection of storage items, empty. They may have legal issues, like that visual obstruction in the car, or shoplifting. She did not have shoplifting. They may have numerous pets, many in poor health. Thank God she did not that. They make statements like, I need to get organized, I'm a bit of a pack rat, the house is pretty messy, can't have you in till I clean, and this one called chaos, can't have anyone over syndrome. I got that off of a website called flylady.net. She kind of helps people organize, get started. And sorry, handwriting, because this document's on a travel drive and I can't get to it to modify it. So I'm sorry, my handwriting negatively affects family relationships. We've talked about that. The home or the apartment has clutter in the yard, on the porch, in the doorway. The window shades or curtains are never opened. The glass is sometimes covered to obstruct view. Window coverings appear to be crushed against the window by items in the house. Cars are full, possibly damaged from accidents. Vehicles are never parked inside the garage. Abandoned or derelict vehicles are on the property. Things are foul smelling, rodent or insect infestation. Overrun with dogs or cats. With me, it's dust bunnies. Trash is rarely or never taken to the curb for pickup. Appliances are going unrepaired for extended lengths of time. Abandoned first home or apartment, moved and started over multiple times. Not big enough, so the family or individual has a rented storage unit. The condition of the inside of the home varies from piles of items on furniture to very narrow pathways called goat trails between mounds of belongings in every space of the home. It varies from clean clutter, like she was mentioning, to a combination of trash and personal belongings soiled or water damaged beyond salvage. Any or all of the above may be present in their workplace environments. Now on the back, I have a few resources listed, and a few things got whited out because, like I said, I couldn't find my document to edit. But some books, some things. The things over here on this little side table, all but the audio book are available at Clarinda Public Library. Can't verify. I mean, I just took them off the shelf. I just looked up the subject and took them off the shelf. The audio book in the middle, I have listened to. I've got notes. Somebody could borrow it from me, but the others come from Clarinda Library. Let's see. The notes for that webinar that I did a lot of stuff out of that. I didn't make everybody a copy because you could probably go to Mindspring Mental Health Alliance and see if they've got a recording of that. If you're interested, I'll just leave these over here if you want those. They're just my outline notes from that. Lastly, I'm going to tell you some strategies that I've used through my life that have helped me cope. Firstly, I love recycling. I am a recycling queen. I've got the box for the plastic and the paper, cardboard, and the tin and the glass, and it goes. I don't have any attachment to those things, and I love recycling, and I feel good about it. So I take my things out to the Fairway bins, and I'm good at that, so that stuff goes out of my house. I hate plastic bags because my mother would have layers and layers and layers. I use reusable grocery bags, and I've used them for 35 years. Same bags, canvas, they wash really well. Love my canvas bags. I take my trash out every Sunday night. Trash goes to the curb and they pick it up. My mother didn't take trash out. By golly, I do. That's a big one for me. Go around the house, all the baskets get empty. It was my son's job when he was a little boy. It was his first job, was gather the trash, we take it out. I do my dishes every meal. I have a dishwasher, but I don't use it. I hand wash, and I have a drainer next to the sink, and every morning when I come downstairs as I'm making my breakfast, I'm putting the day's dishes from the day before, putting them away, and it feels good. Because I lived with a home full of dirty dishes all over the home until finally it was paper plates, because we couldn't find the dishes. I love giving away. I've given away a lot of my sister's things. I am good. I can let go. I feel good about getting those things in those rooms that I have the door closed, no admittance. If somebody needs that day bed in there, I'm going to haul that out of there and give it away to somebody, and that feels good. I can garage sale my own things. I can do garage sales. I did an auction or two. I can get rid of those. I can sell. Feels good. And then if I throw something away in the trash, that seems to be my last resort. I have the most trouble throwing something away because it might be useful to somebody else. So I would rather weed outdoors, no question. You pull that sucker, it goes in that bin, it's going to go out to the yard waste. Weeding in the house, everything you pick up has 4 decisions: keep, sell, give, or trash. And when you have to make those emotional decisions with every single item you pick up, it takes a toll. It's hard. So for me, trash is my last resort. I can throw things away. Trash, actual trash, and I feel good about that. The ripped dress that I probably won't fix, somebody might be able to use that. There's where I struggle. There's where I struggle, and I accept it, and I admit it. So I'm going to show you a little clip from a program called Caught on Camera. This is from 2012. And there's this company called Disaster Masters. And I want you to, if you can hear what they're going to say, because it ends up being at the end of my presentation.
Did that go to sleep?
No? No?
Out of control hoarding. You think, wow, why am I doing this? I need to stop. Leaves a mother and daughter overwhelmed. It's very, very chaotic and stressful. And when the experts step in,
a stinky, rotten mess.
even they can't believe their eyes.
What I saw would make anybody want to vomit.
Caught on camera, hoarding. For more than 30 years, Ron Alford has owned Disaster Masters, a full-service crisis management business he now runs with his wife, Melissa. Among other services, Disaster Masters offers assistance with severely cluttered homes.
We know that we can help those people.
Ron and I are both project.
I am so sorry. I meant to prepare you. I don't want to re-traumatize anyone. I'm sorry I didn't mention this. If you are at all uncomfortable, feel free to get up. If I'd been taken by surprise and not known this was coming, I probably would have had to. I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't say that first for you. So feel free to get up if you need to.
Project managers go in and help people that are living in unsafe and unhappy and unhealthy conditions.
But according to Ron Alford, Disaster Master services are only available to those who make the call themselves to take their own first step toward recovery from excessive hoarding.
And the first question I ask them is, are you calling for yourself or somebody else? About 70% of the phone calls I get are third parties trying to fix somebody. Those people I say, sorry, can't help you. I can't help somebody that's not interested in helping themselves.
When a call comes in 2010 from a school teacher needing help in Staten Island, New York, the Alfords head out for an assessment with video camera in hand to document the case. But Alford assures all his clients that their identities will remain confidential.
You couldn't open the door 90 degrees, maybe 30. This lady had a hard time getting in her own door. As soon as you walked in the door, the front porch stacked from the floor to the ceiling.
I remember having a difficult time walking through the front door and being amazed that she was in a wheelchair. And the first thing I thought is, how does she get in and out?
The disaster masters make their way around the packed home to assess the severity of the problem.
Behind the door, up against the wall, and the closet still stacked to the ceiling, and the little paths back into the living room, kitchen in the back. You could barely walk into the kitchen.
It was a mix of construction material, like tiles, plaster to repair walls, tools, and things that she had recently purchased as gifts.
Just a complete mess. Everything came home. Nothing had a place.
She had a sofa sleeper that she was using because she could not walk up the stairs because she had just had knee surgery. And the whole second level was uninhabitable. It turns out that all that construction material was because they had renovated a bathroom. So you go to the top of the stairs, and on the left was this amazing bathroom. It was unfortunate that she could not even get up there to use it. You couldn't walk into the bedroom. And then the home office that was upstairs, that was over. I mean, it was full of office supplies. So it was just about safety and about her mobility issues.
The job of painstakingly combing through and removing room after room of debris takes a 5-person crew 3 days.
Everything in there that was a fire, health, and a slipping hazard is gone.
And according to the Alfords, not only was the cleanup successful, but the school teacher has remained committed to maintaining order.
There were a few phone calls made following that, and as far as we know, even today, she's doing okay.
For the disaster masters, another memorable case of severe clutter happens in April 2007. A high-level computer expert reached out for help from a very exclusive neighborhood on Manhattan's Park Avenue.
Okay, that's just the first 4 minutes of a 14-minute episode, and each one gets worse. And I would say my mother was like the next one or the one after is where my mother was. So just stumbled onto this a month or so ago, found this. And again, that's from 2012, so yeah. You have any questions?